Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to explain why evasion is the root of all evil. So to begin with, what is evasion? Evasion is basically when you decide that there's some part of aspect of reality that you don't want to think about, or something you did, or anything like that you don't want to think about, so you're just going to ignore it. You're just going to put it out of your mind and pretend like it never happened and it never existed. This is how some people deal with problems or different things that they see in reality that they don't want to have to think about because it would challenge all of their fundamental premises or anything like that. So this is the worst possible way to think about things, and it ultimately leads to a very anti-reality view of the world. So to begin with, let's talk about the idea of evading something that you did. So let's say you did something that's really terrible, or something that you regret, or something that's or you think is not probably in your self-interest, and you're like, oh shit, how am I going to deal with this? This is something that I did. This is something that happened. So you have a couple options. You could try to deal with it, or you could completely ignore it, or I guess you could dwell on it excessively long as well. So evasion is ultimately the root of all this evil, because because what you're doing when you evade, you just ignore it entirely, when the proper response should be to think about it, correct it, and move on. To think about, what did I do wrong? Why is that wrong? Condemn yourself for it, and then move on and not do it again. Now, evasion, you're completely ignoring that it's wrong, and you're almost making an argument that it's okay in a sense. So then you begin to not have the same moral standard for yourself when you begin to evade the things that you did wrong. So then in the future, you will be more likely to do really negative things. And ultimately, you have that sitting on your subconscious. You have the unwillingness to deal with reality sitting on your subconscious. So you will be less likely to think rationally and form good moral principles on which to act in the future. So yeah, evading problems is a very, very negative thing. And then another thing is evading facts of reality. This is something that a lot of people do when it comes to a lot of different realms of thought, like their beliefs. They're unwilling to challenge their own beliefs. They will ignore any sort of evidence that goes against it. That one good example of this would be religious people, who tend to ignore anything and everything that opposes God, and they don't want to. There's certain religious people that don't want to get in those types of discussions with people where someone's going to challenge their beliefs. Of course, there's some that are willing to engage in the discussion, which I respect. That I really do, and I was that type of religious person back in the day, which ultimately led me to my atheism. And ultimately, like, questioning and not evading ideas is what led me to objectivism. I don't want to simply push away certain facts of reality just because they don't feel right to me, or because they'll challenge the way I view the world. I want to listen to everything and try to understand. And that's how you get to truth, because truth is simply a description of reality. And if you're evading facts of reality, you will never get to truth, because truth requires facts of reality. And truth is obviously good for you, because you act in reality, and if you ignore truth and evade truth, you can't act properly in reality and get the results that you want, which will ultimately be happiness. So you will live a very unhappy life if you constantly evade facts. Because just because you don't think about a fact doesn't mean that fact is not true. You need to constantly integrate facts of reality, because everything's connected and everything is relevant. You can't just ignore something because it doesn't feel good, because that's going to lead you to very negative consequences. And ultimately, the subconscious result of evasion ends up being nihilism. Just the idea that nothing really means anything, that reality is meaningless. You can just completely, since you by evading, you're implicitly saying, I can completely ignore reality. Reality doesn't matter to me. That is the root of nihilism, the idea that reality is meaningless. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.